Now, Sam, I have discovered a very old medieval woodland, and I want to share that with you because really it's all part of our countryside heritage. Wonderful.
Before we carry on, what's with the world t-shirt?
The wild t-shirt? You've noticed, have you? Well, I thought I'd better look the part, hadn't I? If I'm going into woods, I blend in better, don't I?
Yeah.
Come on. Go on, off you go. Oh, dear. I thought my shirt was lovely. Hey, look at this, Sam. An elephant's foot. But it's an ash tree. Isn't it lovely?
Have woodlands always been like this?
No, they haven't. Sadly, they have got less and less and less and less and less. I mean, if you look at the evolution of the woodlands in Britain, you need to go back to the last ice age. And in the last ice age, which is what, as it went back northwards and it started to melt, that was 12,000 years BC. And of course, as it went north, the trees started to follow it up because we were still joined to Europe then. And we're getting into a fairly stable climate. And by then, all the trees were going, that we've got more or less today, were all competing with one another. So we had a solid forest over the whole of the country. The only place it didn't go, top of mountains, sand dunes and estuaries. I mean, there was wild boar, bear, there would have been beavers and all the sort of creatures that you only get in other countries now. But of course, as you go through time, the pressure on the countryside started. 4,500 years ago, Neolithic man came over. They were farmers and they started clearing the land because they wanted it for fields. And they just did it with stone axes. I mean, it's unbelievable. And they literally converted thousands and thousands of acres of woodland into farmland. And then through the Roman periods and then the Saxon periods, they all had their turn at sort of making it less and less and less. And it wasn't until we got to 1086 when William the Conqueror, after he came and of course conquered Britain, decided to put a book together called the Domesday Book. And the Domesday Book recorded everything, literally everything who owned anybody. So all the woodlands are recorded, and those woodlands you could work out then in 1086 that as far as England were concerned, we only had 15% woodland. So we'd gone from 100% to 15% in them thousands of years. You know, nowadays, I suppose it's about 10%, you know, very sad. And all those woods that we've got are all managed in some way or another. But this is a medieval woodland. I'm going to show you how this was managed in medieval days. All right, come on then.
How can you tell this is a medieval wood?
Well, there's certain clues you've got to look out for. One of them is look at the particular plants that's in here, because a medieval wood, it takes ages for certain plants to become established in here, and they're called indicator species. They're like this pendulum sedge that you see on the ground around us, and you got things like wood sorrel and wood anemones and small leaf lime. Another way is to look at all the way around the edge of the wood. Look for a wood bank, right? Now, I'll show you them later. The other one is look for management, woodland management. These woods were managed in the medieval times, okay? Now, I reckon this wood is about 1,000 years old.
That's older than my granddad.
So if it was 1,000 years old, you're looking at trees like that, aren't you?
Yeah.
There ain't any. These are the biggest ones here. Look, this. Because it's managed. The medieval people had to manage these woods because wood was so important. They needed two types of wood, right? They needed what we call coppice wood. That was from the coppices over there, right? Where you cut it off at the bottom and let the shoots grow up. And you use those rods for feeding the fire, for cooking, making charcoal, making fences. And then you also needed the timber. That's these, right? For things like buildings, planks, ships and things like that. So this wood is purely managed to keep the medieval household ticking over. Now in this wood there's some coppices that are about literally centuries old, and you can keep a tree going literally to nearly over 1,000 years of age just by keep coppers in it. Do you want to see some?
Yeah.
Come on then. Now, Sam, take a seat. Oh. Now we are sitting on a bank.
Bank? Does that mean you can't get money out of it?
I wish. I wish. No, this is a wood bank all the way along here. Fabulous, isn't it?
What's a wood bank?
Well, a wood bank is basically been constructed to keep domestic and wild cattle and deer from going into the wood. So they would have come back here in medieval times and dug out this ditch and thrown the soil over here, and I reckon this has got to be getting on for about 1,000 years old. And then they would have put a fence along the top or a hedge all along there. And the reason why they want to keep stock out of here is because in there is wood that they're managing, and a lot of it, like hazel and ash and maple, they'd be cutting the bottom off and letting the shoots grow up so they can use those in and around the house, you know, for various things. And when you've got them young and tender, cattle and deer like to nibble. So unless you stop them coming in, they'll nibble all your wood. So that's why they've built these banks all the way around. So this is a good indicator to tell you that's a very old wood over there.
All this cutting down, isn't it bad?
That's a good question, that is. Not really, because a wood is self-renewing, basically. The best way I can explain it is when you've got a beautiful hay meadow, right, all the wildflowers, and it looks idyllic, and the farmer comes along and cuts it for hay and takes it all away. The next year, that all comes back up again as a beautiful hay meadow. And that's what happens in a woodland. If you keep coppicing the wood, it'll keep coming back for centuries and centuries and centuries. It'll keep, recycling itself. The bad news is if you come into a wood and start grubbing up the trees and, taking it all away so it's not a woodland anymore. Come on, let's go look at them big coppices. Oh, I think you might have to help me up. Oh, hang on. Oh, right, here we go.
Come on, come on.
Oh, hang on, you young'uns, blimey. Oh, I don't think I shall bother getting up there, but wow, you've discovered a fabulous tree. It's an oak tree, and it's been coppiced centuries and centuries and centuries ago. Wow, it's just been left, and it's almost like art, isn't it? Isn't it wonderful?
What's your favourite type of tree?
Well, my favourite tree, it's got to be the oak tree. I mean, when you think about it, it's magical. It grows to an old age it can grow up to 1,000 years old. It's got a canopy that lets the light in and fills the woodland floor. It produces leaf mould, which is great for lots of other plants. I just love it to bits, is the oak tree. What about you?
My favourite type of tree is definitely the whining willow.
The whining, not the weeping. The weeping willow.
Yeah, weeping.
I like the whining willow better, but I do like the weeping willow.
Weeping.
Smashing. Oh, look at that one over there. Look, it's a smashing. Let's go look at this one. Wow, look at this. This is wonderful, Sam. This is an ash tree, and an ash tree that's very, very old. Under normal circumstances, I don't know, if it were left to grow as a tree, an ash tree, what, 100, 150 years? Because this has been managed as a coppice, in other words, over the centuries and centuries, it's been cut off and allowed to grow and cut off, and they've used the timber. I bet you this is, I don't know, 300-400 years old, perhaps even longer. It's absolutely wonderful. Oh, if only I had a time machine, I could go back and see when it was just a little ash tree. Oh, marvellous. Come on then.
What's this?
Well, this is called honeysuckle, and it's one of my favourite plants, really, and it's a typical woodland species. And what it does, it starts on the ground and grabs hold of a tree, and it climbs and climbs until it can get to the sunlight. Its old-fashioned name is called the woodbine, right? Because it binds round wood. It's as simple as that. And there's some old sayings, right? Old country sayings, that if you take a sprig of honeysuckle, right, and you put it in the house, it means there's a wedding on the way. This is old-fashioned. Have you heard that one by hook or by crook?
No.
Well, a lot of people will say, I'm going to have it by hook or by crook, right? And that saying comes from that if you go back to, again, medieval times, the peasant was allowed in the royal forest on certain days to go in and collect dead wood, but he had to collect it by a hook, right, or a crook. Now the crook is when you pulled it down, dead wood, and the crook, let's get it right, was where you chopped at the bottom. So hook and crook. Well, that's what I was told anyway. And the other one you want to listen out for is the ash before the oak, we're going to get a soak, and the oak before the ash, we're only going to get a splash. Watch out for that next spring. Go on then. Oh. Oh. Now, Sam, what we've got here is an example of a fresh coppice. Now, the conservation volunteers that work on this reserve would have come in about, well, it looks like it's about 2 years old, and cut this down at the bottom. And they would do this between, 7 and 15 year cycles. And that's exactly what this wood would have been full of, is this understorage of this hazel coppice. And these would have been taken, like I say, for firewood, for charcoal, for making furniture, for building houses, warm and doppel, all kinds of things. And I'm glad to say this tradition is being carried on. And you need to carry on doing this tradition because it helps the wildlife. They are so important. Come on then. Oh, off we go. Oh, there's the gate. And about ready for a cup of tea, ain't you?
Yeah.
Have you enjoyed your ramble around a lovely old medieval woodland?
Yeah. Before we go, how can we save woods like this for my generation?
What a lovely thing to say. It's quite simple. Anybody watching this film, I would just say join the local wildlife trust. They're the ones that's saving places like this. Just go online, put Wildlife Trust in and become a member. And they'll be there for future generations like you. Come on then.